I got two things to talk to you about. One, everyone's crazy, and two, real life doesn't exist. So if you want to stick around to find out what I'm talking about, hang out and let's get ambered. So two things I need to explain. The obvious one, first one is I'm breaking out the crazy girl glasses today. If you don't know the lore, I'm going to link some videos below where it's been pretty well established that these glasses make you crazy or are worn by crazy people. And I thought what more appropriate decor than that to talk about the fact that I believe we're all crazy, that the long and the short of it. Also, something that I'm doing right now is it's actually Pesach, which is Passover, and I am Jewish, so I am making haraset, which is like an apple salad. So this is kind of an unusual get ready with me. I hope you're not threatened by the knife. I'm just cutting up a bunch of apples by hand because I don't know how to use my food processor. So I hope that you will enjoy making haraset with me. It's delicious. I have a lot of fun. I'm going to be using non-alcoholic wine today because I'm making it for people with allergies. I'm making several versions of it. I'm making it with and without nuts, and I'm making it with non-alcoholic wine so that everyone can partake just in case they have a problem with the alcohol. But anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing while I'm talking. So if it distracts you, sorry about it. I'll try to be quiet while I talk. I hope you don't find the knife threatening. I'm just using it to cut up apples. So I'll keep it out of frame as much as possible, and I'll show you at the end what I made. But essentially today I want to talk about something that I fully believe, which is sanity doesn't exist. Essentially, I think we're all crazy. I saw a TikTok that I probably won't be able to find again because TikTok moves a mile a minute, but essentially it said, when did mental illness become an aesthetic? You know, almost like it's this cutesy thing, like, oh, like I'm crazy, you know, like look at me, I'm crazy, you know, look at this cute little thing I got, you know, look at this anxiety I picked up, you know, along the way. And a lot of that is from people not really understanding what these diagnoses mean, and just kind of using it as like a cute little word. And obviously that's a little problematic, but I'd like to answer that by saying when we started believing that crazy people are valid, when we started taking the fangs out of the word crazy. And I honestly think that even though people who improperly use mental illness as incorrectly or as an excuse for bad behavior, obviously they're bad actors, but basically I say that it's a good shift in society because I think that we are finally recognizing that crazy isn't a forever state. I think that sanity doesn't exist. I think that sanity is just a collection of behaviors that we agree is socially acceptable at the time. And we believed so many things were socially acceptable at different points in history. I mean, you look at people coming back from World War I or World War II, and, you know, it was just normal that grandpa got the shakes, you know, when there was fireworks going outside. And like, that's not mental illness, that's totally sane. Or, you know, so-and-so was okay until the one day that he came back really moody. Coping with it involved drinking and causing harm to his family or her family, you know. we used to accept a lot of bad behaviors or unusual behaviors and just assume it was a part of life. We used to define it as sane. And then conversely, we used to call a lot of behaviors crazy that aren't. For example, washing your hands. Louis Pasteur ended up dying of someone not washing their hands because he got put in a sanatorium for telling doctors to wash their hands between patients. So was he crazy? I don't think so. I think if he was born now, he would be fully, within his rights. I mean, he ended up getting killed from something that he was trying to save other people from. So at what point do we define crazy or sane? I think personally that it's a fluid state. I think that you can act crazy and not be crazy. I personally identify as crazy because I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that none of us are sane. So to say you're sane kind of makes you crazier than all of us, because what are you hiding? If you've never, are you telling me you've never acted badly in your life? Like, are you telling me that you've always had your emotions completely under control? Like, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Or I believe that maybe you haven't hit your limit yet. And again, there used to be this, I mean, even I used to think that that crazy was just a state that was like coming to get you, like you were always like just out of frame of like paranoia and like, don't think like that because it's slippery slope to schizophrenia. Like, I believed a lot of the stigmas around mental illness where, it was just around the corner and all roads lead to insanity, and I was afraid to even like entertain certain thoughts. Like, for example, the school of thought surrounding internal family systems is basically the idea behind DID, which is another word for multiple personality disorder. But now they're starting to find out that the idea of having multiple selves is actually very normal, and all of us have it. It's just that in individuals with multiple personality disorder, it is amplified, and it is trauma basically disconnects all of the selves that we all have naturally. So our ideas of what is crazy, what is sane are changing every day. So I just go ahead and say that it's all the same. Like, we're all crazy. None of us is sane, because sane is a temporary state. You're only sane until you're not. You're only, they say you're paranoid until you're right. Then, at what point is paranoia crazy? And I'd say when it starts influencing you to make societally unacceptable behaviors. Then again, like, what is that? I think, in my opinion, it's things that hurt other people, doing things to people without their consent. I think that's when intervention needs to come in. But at the same time, like, even intervention is different nowadays. For example, like, if you were crazy, put you in a room, like, get out of here. Like, it was so easy to just like call a woman crazy because she's dissatisfied in her marriage, because her husband doesn't pay attention to her, or she's not fulfilled in her life, and she doesn't know how to make her life better when she has no rights and can't vote and can't have a job, like, but she's crazy. Or it was to undermine your opinions. Or if someone went missing, the first question would be, did they want to harm themselves? It's just like, did they do it to themselves? Like, it was a trap. Mental illness was considered a trap. It was considered a way to discount each other, to invalidate each other, to ostracize people. And I think the idea of people being proud of it is one thing. I think it's the pendulum swinging too far in the opposite direction. Like, I don't know if we should, I'm not sure if being proud of it is the best direction, because I think if you have a problem, you should still try to work on getting help for it. If it's causing you pain and making it hard to interact with people. But I think it is a symptom of a good thing. I think that our ideas about mental illness are changing, and I think that it's becoming more socially acceptable to have certain problems, or to have certain disabilities, or to not be neurotypical. I think we're finally starting to dismantle the idea of sanity, of neurotypical behaviors, because I think it's an illusion. I think there is no normal. I think there is no sane. I think it's just, are you functional? Are you able to exist in society in a reasonable, without reasonable amount of accommodations, and how can we get you there? And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that is a good thing, that we're getting these new diagnoses, that we're getting these new forms of help, and I think that we should work towards that. I think not being afraid of the word crazy is how we take its poison away, is how we stop it from causing us to clam up and to hide. But essentially, I think that it's a good trend. Even if, the type of people who brag about being, saying, oh, I'm autistic, that means I can, I don't know, hurt you, or say really obnoxious things, or oh, I have anxiety, that means you have to do everything I say. The type of people who do that, we're going to use any excuse anyway. And I don't think that it's the fault of knowing more about mental illness that causes bad actors to act bad. I think they were already going to, but I don't think that it is a symptom of a larger problem. I think it's actually a symptom of the solution, and I think that the solution is more awareness, more validating that that people can have slip-ups. People can have times in their life where they were not fully within acceptable bounds, and they can heal, and they can get medication, and they can get help. They can get there are systems in place for them to be able to heal, and they can still be contributing members of society. And I think that's great, because before, it used to be crazy was a one-way street. You go crazy and you don't come back. You get in this category and you're trapped. And I think that is not the case as much anymore. For me, I was specifically afraid of the psych ward. I was like, oh my God, you're going to go there, you're going to get trapped in there, and you're never going to come out. They want you to believe you're crazy in there. They want to just tie you to a bed and med you up, and then you'll be a zombie when you come out. I was scared of that. I was scared of people acting like that, and I was scared of getting caught by getting trapped in a psych ward, getting tossed in there and then you disappear and it's over for you, and you just never emerge again, or you emerge a different person. And I can confess, I've been to one before. I've been to one for a mental breakdown, and I'm not ashamed to admit it anymore. I've been several times actually, and first off, they didn't want me there. So let me dispel that right now. They don't actually want to keep you there, because if you are actually sane, or, close to it, if you are functional, and if you just had a slip up, if you're struggling and ungrounded, but you're not fully in a psychotic episode, or you're not in a hallucinogenic episode, then they don't want you there. They want to get you out to free up the bed for someone who is climbing up the walls and screaming and basically completely not functional. So I can tell you that all the times I've been there, they haven't been able to help me. They just basically, take my blood a couple times, monitor me, and be like, well, obviously you don't need to be here. Hopefully you can get some help in outpatient program. But basically, I was there. It was not pleasant, because you're around a lot of people who are really struggling and who are, having episodes, and it's scary, to be around people who are exhibiting potentially dangerous behaviors. But it really helped open my eyes to the fact that they were not trying to trap me. They were not trying to, stick me in a room and make me disappear. Like, they wanted me to get help, and they couldn't give me the help I needed, but they also didn't want to hold me. They didn't want to keep me there, when I wasn't suffering in an extreme way that other people were. And I guess I might as well tell you, I went for the best way to put this on YouTube is I went for self-deletion behaviors, or ideation. And basically I was already working with a psychiatrist and a psychologist, but my psychiatrist was a little overzealous and they were afraid for my safety. So they essentially said, go or we'll call the police. And that was one of the ones I went to. Another time I went was when I was working 60-hour weeks, and I clocked out finally, and I realized that my life was not something I wanted to continue living. I didn't want to go home. And after 60 hours, like, if you don't want to go home, to me, that's maddening. That's crazy. So I felt crazy, and I just started crying, and I couldn't stop. And I happened to be at work, and basically they were afraid that something was going to happen to me. So they sent me out to the psych ward again. Again, nobody did or said anything to me. I basically sat in a room for like a couple of hours and, stared at a wall, and just they waited for me to stop crying. But, they didn't want me there. They definitely did not want to trap me or hide me away. There were people on drugs. There were people on, who were having a much worse time than me, and they wanted to make room for them. And it just made me feel a lot safer all around, because it's like, I kept telling people that I was safe, that I didn't need to go to, a room. But because people were afraid for my safety, and I couldn't stop crying, because I couldn't stop crying, they decided to send me there. but again, it wasn't a trap. It was not what I always thought it to be. I mean, it was, at the time, it was my worst case scenario. I was terrified. I was like, oh, here it goes. This is the end of my life. I'm gonna be a zombie forever. They're gonna shoot me up with a bunch of drugs. And they didn't do any of that. You know, they talked to me. That was it. They just talked to me for a little bit. They gave me food, and they were like, okay, you know, call someone to pick you up, you know. And I wanted to share that because I think that people are scared of that. I know I was. And I'd like to dispel that, you know, like they really, you know, I'm not going to pretend like there aren't bad psych wards, but in general, the psych wards are there to give you help and to get you back to normalcy and to get you back into society. So, you know, obviously, they're not the ideal place to go and be in, but they're also not the way they used to be. They're not these horrible, like, haunted house type, you know, evil places. And I think that is a good way to dispel some of the stigma, because I know that it took me years to warm up to getting therapy, because I was afraid they were going to put me in a room. I was like, they can't know how crazy I am, you know, like if they know, then it's over for me. But that shouldn't be the way it is. It's not the way it is in most, I would say most of the circumstances, again, because of practical reasons. Like, again, like there are people who need to be in those facilities because they cannot function in society and they're being disruptive. So they need the beds for those people. So if you come in there and you're having a hard time and like you're depressed, or, you know, they're worried about you endangering your safety, but you are calm and you are quiet, they're going to try to get you out. Like, they want you to get help, but those aren't the places that are going to give you the most help if you are within acceptable ranges. And I think that goes both ways, to say that not only are they not magical places that save you, but they're also not evil places that try to hurt you. So I think that is a good thing. You know, I think they're just places to get help. And the best ones are the ones that will prioritize, you know, getting you back to functional state, you know, getting you help as soon as possible and getting you out, you know. And I think that's what I was most afraid of, was, you know, I was going to be trapped. And that wasn't I can tell you from personal experience, that wasn't the case. I've been in, I was in a psych ward on the East Coast and on the West Coast, and neither of them were neither of them were helpful, but neither of them were evil, dark, scary dungeons, you know. So I can at least tell you that. And then the other thing I'd like to say is, you know, I just, if you're thinking about therapy, do it. My God, it's the best thing that I ever did for myself. I personally went because I'm not going to get into how much was going on. There was a lot going on, though, in my life, my childhood. I had a lot to process, and the final straw was that I had been in, I've said before, I was in a 9-year relationship, and it was ending, and I couldn't function. I thought that I wouldn't be able to function without him, and there were several reasons for that. I mean, he literally told me, like, he said, like, oh, who are you without me, and who are you like basically I the only reason why I don't break up with you is because I'm afraid that you'll hurt yourself, and things like that. And so like my self-esteem was like not good at the time, because it was not a good relationship. But I also didn't want to be the one to end it. So I just was trying to look for ways to change so that I wasn't the bad one, so that I didn't hurt him. And I figured out how to be a better girlfriend so that he would stay. And I'm a little bit ashamed of that, because I never thought that I would be that type of person. I never thought that I would have a man so central to my motivations and my life. But I mean, after 7 years, I would do anything to keep him. After 7 years, I couldn't see my life without him. And I remember walking into my therapist's office for the first time and saying, teach me how to be a person, because when he leaves me, I'm going to be the outline where a person used to be. And thank God he did just that. My first therapist was an absolute magician. Like, he took me from a collection of pieces, just like a crying mess, to a functional human being. And I'll always be grateful to him. He was a wonderful, amazing man. But I highly recommend therapy to anyone who's even considering it, because I think, again, no one's sane. So if you go to therapy, you will learn something. I don't believe that anyone, I don't care how sane you say you are, like, I don't believe anyone would not benefit from therapy. I think that the world is just too crazy for you to say that you don't need to talk to someone about it. Like, yeah, a lot of people say, like, oh, my friends are, helpful, but your friends don't know how to disassemble your mind. And I think it's the most gratifying experience you can have. Just have someone really, like, get into, like, your thoughts and be like, why do you think that, and why do you feel that way? And just to ask those questions. Like, I can't imagine my life without it now. I was 20, maybe 25, I think, when I first went to therapy. And, like, I can't believe I lived 25 years without going to therapy. Like, I got so much from it. And of course, not all therapy is equal. You have to not only be ready to tackle the big issues for it to work, but you have to have a good relationship with your therapist. Like, it's like, if you don't, not that it's not a science, but if you don't have a good relationship with them, and you don't trust them and respect them and believe in their abilities, then it's not going to be as helpful. But I would argue that therapy at all is more helpful than not having therapy. And I've had bad therapists. I have had therapists that just listened and didn't say anything, which made me feel not heard or validated. But just finding the right one is just so worth it. And that's why I say, like, don't be afraid to be crazy. Like, don't be afraid to say, I'm struggling, or don't be afraid to have a diagnosis. Like, the diagnosis is not there to attack you or trap you or put you in a box. Like, you don't have to tell anyone. But I personally, like, I don't mind telling people, because I know what's going on in my brain now, and I feel so much more equipped to deal with life. So if you're saying, like, oh, I'm crazy for that, like, go ahead. Like, I'd rather be crazy than sane. If knowing what's going on in my mind is crazy, thank God, like, thank God I'm crazy. Because I don't believe anyone's sane. I just don't believe it, because the world is too crazy to stay sane within it. I can't imagine, like, I feel like the world would turn you crazy even if you had a fully, full deck, a fully functional brain. But I think anyone could benefit from help. And not saying that everyone needs medication or anything like that, but just talking to someone, oh my God, like it's life changing. I highly recommend doing it. But essentially, what I want to say is sanity doesn't exist. It's not real. It is a temporary state between crazies, because we're all a little crazy, and that's fine. You can still have valid opinions. That's my biggest thing, that's my biggest endorsement, I guess, of the new movement of talking about diagnoses and talking about being neurodivergent and not being normal, of not being afraid to be abnormal. I think the best thing that's come out of that is that we are now acknowledging that good advice can come from anywhere. You don't have to be the upper echelon of society in order to be valid, and good and bad advice can come from anyone or anything, and that crazy doesn't disqualify you from being a functional member of society, and it also doesn't disqualify you from having a valid opinion. Embrace your crazy. Be crazy, because we're all crazy. And if you think you're not, you're a liar. I'm telling you, I'm calling you right now. I'm calling you out right now. If you're not calling yourself crazy, then you're a liar. Or you don't know. You don't know how crazy you are. And I don't think that's fine, to be honest. You can live an entire life thinking you're sane, go ahead, but other people are dealing with you crazy if you're not. So I fully embrace it. I say I'll do whatever it takes to be the best version of myself I can be. And if that involves being crazy for short amounts of time, or calling myself crazy overall, okay, so what? What does that do? They're not putting me in rooms anymore. They want me out of those rooms. Thank God. And yeah, I'm not afraid of it. And I don't think anyone should be. I think, of course, there's certain settings that it's less desirable to admit you're crazy, but everyone is. So it's how well are you functioning in society? How well are you taking care of yourself? And whatever you have to do to take care of yourself the best way possible and to take care of everyone else in your life, do it. My God, do it. Take the medication, go to see the therapist, go to a group therapy session, go to a support group, whatever you have to do, because it's your life. It's at the end of the day, like, you can't help anyone else if you are not at your best, and you deserve it. You should be at your best. Do whatever you got to do to get there. It's not as scary as it used to be, and it's the only way to go, I think. I think it's worth it. I think anyone can benefit, and get TMS, get the medication, do whatever you got to do to get there, because you deserve someone on your team. You deserve a team to get you to the best version of yourself. So go for it. And the second part of what I was talking about earlier is this concept of real life. So not only does sanity not exist, but I don't believe in real life. And what do I mean by that? Essentially, people I know have always told me about the way real life is going to be. Obviously it happened a lot more in college and high school and things like that, where, adults would be like, oh, you can't be like this in real life and you can't be like that in real life. Like, real life's going to get you, it's going to eat you up, and I know they especially tell that to women, and to people who they think are too fragile to like live in real life, or to like function in society. Like, you can't be too sensitive, you can't care too much, you can't, I know I was entering the medical field, or I was in high school and college, I was doing my education to have a degree in the medical field. And I found that a lot of people would just tell me how it was going to be in real life, and all the things I had to put up with, and all the things that I couldn't care about anymore. I wanted to be a veterinarian, and they're like, oh, you can't be sad every time they die. And I'm like, you know what? No. I remember there was this moment, I was sitting around a table, and everyone around the table had a PhD but me. And they were describing some of the things they went through to get that PhD, and they were describing something that all of them hated. They hated it for 8 hours a day, every day, for like almost a year. And all of them had to do it. And they all said, like, oh yeah, you only got to do it for like 6 months. And I was like, what? Like, I just couldn't believe that all of them had just suffered in the same way. And they just were like, yeah, and I'm like, I couldn't drink that Kool-Aid. I could not settle into the fact that I was going to hate my life for 6 solid months, doing something that didn't make any sense, and basically was hazing. From what I could hear, it was basically like, oh, the newbies gotta do the bad task or whatever for a really long amount of time. And I said, no. I said, I don't want to live like that. I don't understand why all of you have tolerated this up until this point, but that's not real life for me. There's this whole like, oh, real life is gonna be like this. It's gonna be like that. I've been in rooms where there are people younger than me, and they're telling me like, oh, you can't have attitude like that in real life. And I'm like, what do you know? You're 20. Like, I'm in my 30s, and you're telling me how real life is going to be? Like, I've seen more real life than you. And I think there's two sides to that phrase of, real life, is that a lot of the people who say it, they mean well. I know they're trying to like prevent you from some kind of suffering, but I think they also assume that your experience is going to be like everyone else's. And I think that's not fair, it's invalidating, and it's unreasonable. So if you're a teenager, if you're in middle school or whatever, and someone tells you, when you get to real life, like, your life is real. Like, your life is real right now, and it's going to be real then. And people can't tell you with certainty that your life is going to look a certain way and you're going to have to go through the same things. I think, I know especially with millennials, I know we know this more than anyone, because we were bought and sold the idea of getting a college degree. And then it was like, oh, you're not going to be able to when you get into real life, you're not going to be able to function without a college degree, and you're not going to be able to make but a certain amount of money, and education. And a lot of us graduated with our degrees, and we're finding that the job market doesn't look at all like what we were told, and that, you know, a college degree is not the ticket to the better life necessarily. I mean, some people it is, some people it isn't. But I think this concept of real life that everyone rallies around, to me, is misleading for sure. And I think that I wouldn't take any stock in it. I don't. I think that people will always tell me how real life is, and I will always take it with a grain of salt. Like, I think that it should be rephrased. I think they should talk about their own experience. I think if they want to tell me how it was for them, they can tell me how it was for them, but don't tell me how it will be for me, when that's just not necessarily true. So if you want to take away anything from that, I'd say real life isn't real. There is no real life. There is no experience that everyone's going to have to go through. There is no one size fits all, especially not anymore, especially not with the internet, especially not with all of the types of employment that's going to be available and not available with AI, with technology. The world is changing too fast for people to reliably predict how it's going to be. So if you hear that and you hear the words real life, go ahead and listen, but real is a misnomer. The words real life shouldn't be used, in my opinion. I think that it's not fair to the person's experience that you're talking to, because their life is real. Their life is real now, and it's going to be real then, and they're allowed to have a different experience than you, and it doesn't always equal out in the end. It doesn't always shake out to the same life. No one knows how our lives are going to unfold, and we can't all be measured by the same ruler. And that applies to sanity, and that applies to this concept of real life. Neither of them are real. They're both oversimplification of an invalidating premise. And think critically, you know, think about it. Next time someone talks to you about that, remember the source. Remember that their experience is their experience, and it doesn't necessarily apply to you, and you don't have to listen. You don't have to take it as gospel. They're using outdated words and outdated terms to justify your experience, and you don't have to listen. So that's my permission slip. Do with it what you will. And thanks for making Haraset with me. Thanks for sticking around and getting ambered. These are biodegradable gloves, by the way. Hey, you're a good boy. I love you. Mira's in the background being a little awkward, but he's a good boy. He's being my good boy. He's helping me cut apples with spiritual encouragement. Love you. I wish you were more in frame. I probably shouldn't be putting a knife in your face. I wonder if YouTube would hate that I'm using a knife right now. I'm not being violent, but maybe they'll be upset with me. Guess we'll find out.